All right, so welcome everybody. This is going to be a little bit of a round panel because I wanted to try to do this a little bit more every week, so it gives us time to kind of decompress from the week that we just got done, right? And then be able to talk a little more to individuals like Travis about their ventures so far into the master's program, and it was something that I wanted to do prior, but I just never, you know, got going. So go ahead and we'll go around. Dawson first,
All right.
Geo, Sobe, and then Travis. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there. Go ahead, Dawson.
Well, hello. My name's Dawson Majors. Nice to meet all the people of YouTube in the future, where whenever this video is gonna be posted. But you know, I'm a game designer, kind of independent at the moment, and going with my masters for with all these guys here. And I'm just happy to be here. Off to you, Gio.
Hi, my name is Giovanni Sierra. I am a game designer. I graduated Full Sail in 2020 with a bachelor's, and I am now pursuing the master's degree. And I love playing games.
Hello, I'm Sobe, aka Joseph Sabrino Torres. And same as everyone, we're all masters, going for the masters of game design. I just graduated back in October for the bachelor's and just gonna create games for the rest of my life. All right, Travi.
You guys are all rock stars. My name is Travis, at Komodo Dojo on all social media.
Shameless
I
plug.
am a game producer, not a designer, and I am in my fourth month of the master's program at Full Sail. I graduated with my bachelor's last, when was it, July? Yeah, somewhere in the summer. It was hot. And yeah, I want to help these guys make video games. So that's my purpose.
All right. Well, my name's Fink. I am host. I'm also a game designer. I finally graduated in December 2022. I was supposed to graduate with all, Travis and our original think tank group, but stuff happens. We're back. We're finishing it now, and I'm along with my master's degree with them as well. I am planning on going into just sticking with game design and possibly doing indie for the duration, of my life. That'd be great. Because I like to create. I don't like to produce like Travis over there.
All right. That felt like, kind of like a dig, but I'll allow it.
Only a little bit.
a little bit. But so being that our first week has come and gone from Full Sail, I know it's different for Travis. He is considerably a little bit farther than us in the program, so he's acquired a little bit of that Full Sail must again. And then I know since coming back, I know for myself, only being a month off, that's all I took off before I jumped back in. So it's the same for me. Nothing, it was just kind of an extended break. So what I'm trying to figure out is what went right for everybody this week. Doesn't really matter. I know Travis, a lot of stuff today you probably, we're not going to have you, you're barred from a lot of information sharing. So we understand that
Yeah.
due to like NDAs and stuff. So you just do the best you can.
Yeah.
And I know Geo, which is really cool, is because, like you said, he graduated in 2020. So it's been a pretty big break from his original push into game design and then back in it to take on this new milestone for the Masters. So for myself, I think this week was just kind of getting back into the groove and starting to address, my schedule because I procrastinate quite a bit. I know we're all kind of a little bit about the procrastination monkey, one of the greatest videos ever. But that's pretty much the only thing I've seen that I would be doing wrong. I know that I love to write, I just hate to read. And I know that I was forewarned about the reading when I first started by everybody, but they undersold it just a little bit. Dawson, how do you feel?
I kind of feel the opposite of you there. So like, I love to read, but I hate to write because it's I get that writer's block like whenever I start writing. So it's pretty hard. But I was warned about the reading and the writing too, as well as you, since I had that same month off. But I think they undersold the writing part for me. The reading isn't a problem. The writing is kind of where it's lackluster for me. And for this week, it was the same as you. I was getting back into that kind of group of Full Sail. So since we took that month off, I am getting back and getting my schedule back to where it should be and getting a better feel for how the Masters is going to be going, considering all the work we're going to have. And what else? So my biggest thing is for this week that went right too was getting all this work done. Like I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get all this work done, but we kind of hit the ground running as soon as the first day hit and got it in and got it more than done way ahead of time. So, and hopefully we can keep that kind of pace going. What about you, Giovanni?
So I know we're going to be shifting Geo. Another thing that I do want to ask though to Geo, because I know that we're going to go about what went right with your week. I do kind of want to see where your frame of mind was too, considering that it has been such a long time since you've been back.
Of course. I will answer your question first. Um, so I've actually joined several studios over the past years where after I graduated. I joined Pararealms, Moonriff Entertainment, and Equinox Productions. Within these studios, I gained a lot of experience programming, designing, level designing, and the last one, multiplayer experience. But I myself did not really enjoy the multiplayer networking part, but I still gained some skills in there. What was your
So-
other question, Dawson? Sorry.
So what went right for you this week? Like now that you've hit the ground running for your second bout of Full Sail education.
Well, I got a groove of how the Full Sail classes are going to be for to masters. They're actually pretty big assignments, but giving a whole rundown of the whole year, I feel like I can do this, and I'm ready to succeed and get that master's degree.
Nice. Sobi?
All right. So for me, even the 3 months, I was away for 3 months, and I feel like this week hit me pretty hard. I wasn't ready for all the reading. I'm with Fink on the side of reading is a little harder to conquer for me than the writing part. Like I could BS almost anything. But as for what went right, I I feel like the bachelors pretty much got us prepared for this and actually prepared us. which is astonishing. Especially hearing other people's experiences in the past of attending the same school for bachelor's and masters. It's usually a vast difference, and here they're still very, very supportive. And other than not having my stuff graded right away, it's been a wonder as for what has gone right. And I don't know if you said, if did you ask if anything went wrong?
No. But I
All
mean,
right,
do you
all
feel
right.
like
Well,
anything went wrong for you this week?
yeah, definitely. My my scripting of my video. I guess we had to do a video pretty much. Uh, Pretty much tying our lives to the reading that we had, and I had a very hard time, very, very hard time scripting something, and in the end I just kind of had to wing what I had. So that I feel like that went wrong for me.
No, I feel you. Man. The videos, it was a little bit more difficult for me as well. I'm not a video editor, so I'm kind of there with you, you know? How about you,
Yeah.
Travis? How was your week?
Well, I am. Well, I'll start off by saying, if contextually, when I started the program, I started in November, so I was off July, August, September, October, so for 4 months. But I kind of knew what I was getting into because obviously I talked to a friend of mine who had started right after we graduated in July. But also my wife, my sister, they both have master's degree. My one sister has a PhD, so I kind of like picked their brains about what master's coursework was like. So I kind of had an idea what I was getting into. Fast forward to month 4, and it's like full on like graduate level stuff. This week was pretty daunting in terms of getting a group together for a scientific standard of a research environment. So we had to like establish a team of 5, present a thesis or a hypothesis that we would like to test inside of a game, and then we have to do write-ups and relevant research to that. But on the side of that, we also have to do research papers in regards to our mastery thesis, which mine is e-learning platforms and the effects that like educational video games have on material retention for kids. So I have to read 2 case studies that are a minimum of 10 pages of research, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's one thing to read a book you enjoy. It's another thing to read like a dossier. Like, it's a different level of engagement. And I feel for you guys when you talk about struggling through reading, because it's not fun reading. It's taxing. And so all of that. So I'm a little stressed this week because I also have my honeymoon in 3 weeks. So I'll be out of the country for the very last week of class. And my teammate said that I could just record my bit for our recording that we have to do for the research presentation, but I don't have anything from the professor as far as like my final and things like that go. So like my stress level's a little high, but we're getting through it.
No, I get it. That's awesome, man. Again, congratulations on the marriage, and you finally getting out there and getting that honeymoon in.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations, bud.
So, a good question directed mostly at you here, Travis. For being in the Masters, I know that you've kind of had, like you're saying, you kind of had an idea because of family as well as other participants in the Masters. Do you feel like, since you're going that production route, that this is going to lift up your career once you get out?
I do. I think it's very relevant to my career choice because production is not something that talent alone can carry you through. Like, you guys are all fantastic artists, and your eye for design is there. And so on a purely like circumstantial level, if you pressed hard enough and did enough applications, somebody would bite just on your skill level alone. You don't need the education. Whereas Production is solely about knowing how to handle teams. And so without the education that goes along with the psychology of interdisciplinary teams, the psychology of dealing with what you would be considered to be like master craftsmen, like everybody who you're in charge of in essence knows more about something than you do. Because as a producer, my job is to know enough about everything to know if people are doing their job. Whereas you guys, like for instance, if I was in charge of you guys would be doing your design all day, every day, 10 hours a day, nonstop. So when I'm trying to nitpick you, it's going to be kind of annoying to have somebody who doesn't really know the way you know it say, hey, what's going on here? Why isn't this getting done? And so learning that facet of it is definitely educationally important, because I wouldn't get that experience outside. I can't just have that skill. I need to know the processes of that. And also it's more hands-on with the agile theories. So like you guys are all familiar with agile, right? Through
Yeah.
Capstone.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So like learning the Kanbans, learning like the proper procedures for the difference between waterfall technique and agile techniques and those kind of things. Like those are things that you just wouldn't know unless you either A, were taught it, or B, just happened to walk into a production position at a studio. So yeah, I definitely think I'm going to have a leg up on somebody who just has like a general computer science or game degree when it comes to applying for production positions.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for him on this
Yeah.
topic?
Yeah, I got a question for you, Travis, here. So, whenever you do critique the designers and give them feedback, do you feel like, well, I know you said, do you feel like they are they're slighted, right? Or they are kind of hurt by your feedback? Or do they kind of take that feedback in stride? Or does it just depend on the person?
I gonna say I think it really depends on your leadership style. One thing that I always like to do is present not necessarily negative, but criticism in a positive light. So, I'll jump into the group that's behind and say, hey guys, I know that you originally estimated to me that you were going to get this done in 40 hours. We're coming up on that 40 hours. Looks like, according to the JIRA, you guys aren't really close to getting done, or maybe you're not quite there. So either did people forget to move things around, or like what's going on? Did we reach a hiccup? Is there a bug that we need to bring programming in to help you with? Like what's going on? So that way they don't feel like you're like, hey, you guys aren't doing your job. It's more like I sense there's a problem here. How can I help fix it? And I've noticed that when you approach things that way, then people are much more apt to chime in with honest requests than they are to like just either A, blow you off, or B, kind of bitch at you, which is not something I want. I want them to be constructive so I can get a realistic expectation of what needs to be done, as opposed to just complaining about things. Because if you present things in a negative light, teams tend to turn on each other because they don't want to be the bad guy. So they'll say, oh, well, Fink hasn't, finished his level. He's been working on it all week, and he's just taking his sweet time. And then, I go talk to Fink, and Fink turns around and says, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I asked Dawson for those assets a week ago, and he didn't give me them. So that rather than that, you kind of bring them all in as a team. But there are plenty of producers who micromanage, and that's a big issue. So like on this, talking to people in the industry, like producers who micromanage, that leads to high turnover. And so the best, if you're going to have a good producer, if there's not much turnover in the department. And so that comes down to character in the end.
So if you, I've kind of been in these situations where people believe that one bad apple ruins the bunch, I guess you would say. Do you, with that one bad apple, would you say that like that person ruins the team, or kind of gives the team like a bad, like kind of light shined on them or something like that? And if it does, what would you do about that person, specifically from kind of like a producer standpoint?
So you're saying like if you had like your team of 4 designers and one of you was just not pulling your weight?
Yes. Sorry about that. I should have phrased it that way.
It's all right. Yeah. So that's one of those things where we have a hierarchy structure, and so it's a situation where you can kind of handle it with kid gloves, and it requires tact, because you obviously don't want that person to retaliate, but you want to acknowledge that you notice that they're not pulling their weight. And then as a producer, usually there's tiers. So like there's a art lead, there's a design lead, there is a programming lead, there's a audio lead. Like, you guys get it. So then the producers are above them in the hierarchy, but not really in terms of command. It's just somebody for them to report to, and then from there it goes up to like ops managers, studio heads, things like that. So like my job at that point would be to establish whoever your lead was, and then talk to them, because it wouldn't be sketchy to you guys to have me have a one-on-one with the lead. You know what I mean? So if I'm talking to the lead, you're not going to be like, well, that's weird, why would he talk to him? Whereas if I pulled like the bad performer aside, you guys are going to be like, oh, like he must know what's going on, or and then that person has a chance to kind of just spout off. So that's why you had those hierarchical standards. So I can talk to the lead and say, give me your honest feedback, what's going on. And then if we see something like that, we can kind of put them onto like a probationary period, communicate via email, or have them come in for a meeting with like the higher ups above. Like I would sit there, and then we'd have like maybe like a studio lead in there as well, who's like a production lead, who's more empowered than I am to say, hey, like we've been talking to multiple leads, there's an issue, blah blah blah. But that's kind of how you handle that. You don't want to cause a fracture within your immediate team, and so you can kind of pass the buck per se and just go to somebody higher than you. Know, being a studio head, you just it ends with you and you're the asshole. But being a junior producer or associate producer, you can always pass the buck to somebody else to kind of keep the team morale without being the bad guy.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
So-
that kind of gives a really good look at the studio hierarchy. And sorry, go ahead, Fink.
So I know that too, because like I know for our bachelors, there was instances in a team where it's not necessarily that they wouldn't put out weight, they just couldn't work well within the team.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just wasn't really good chemistry. There's just the vibe wasn't there. And since there was no lead for us, right? Like it was just hard to deal with. And I can imagine, you know, being on that end, kind of being like, okay, like the whole team's just on you.
Yeah.
But then, you know, it's just trying to address something, because I think there's a difference between, because you go back to the character of the person. There's a difference between the person who is willing to see and take feedback than that person that just immediately thinks, well, it works for me, so it must
Right.
always work, and there's something wrong with you.
And you've also, by saying all that, you've also kind of tapped into one of the things that you probably don't think about when you're applying for jobs, but it's the reason why AAA studios do it. I'm sure you guys have applied for jobs and on a AAA, and you'll see it's very specific. It's like, I want a fight mechanics designer, I want a puzzle designer, I want a very very specific. Whereas at indie studios, I mean, you guys all want to be indie developers, it's pretty much like can you do anything? Because if that's the case, just come on board. And the reason why those AAAs break down into specifics is because it allows them to plug and play. So if your chemistry is dog water with the team that's making level 3, but you're a mechanics designer, then they can pull you and put you with like level 5, or put you on a different character. Maybe you're doing a hero and that hero team doesn't really get along with you, so they put you over to a different hero. And that's why they get that specific, because it allows them to move people around where they have to go to without necessarily stepping on any toes. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're a pain in the ass, you're a pain in the ass, and that's going to come back and bite you, because personality is, I would say, 50% of getting past phase 2 of an interview process anyway. So they're going to see if you're a vibe for the studio. But if you just kind of like just chalk your way through that, and they find out that you're just not a good egg, then it's going to be an issue. But they do specifications, skill sets, so that way they can move you around as you need.
Yeah, and I've noticed that, because as big as the game industry is, it's not as big as people think, because it's a lot of the same cats moving to different positions and different, you know, going to areas. Because I know that in the beginning they told us, hey, you know, try to leave a good taste in people's mouth, because it's maybe not if you'll see them again, it's when. And you don't know if one of these people are going to be like a lead somewhere, and you're going to be applying. And if all you did is step on their toes, it's just, you know, they're going to immediately say something bad.
Yeah, I mean, you could burn 50 bridges by pissing off 2 people.
Exactly. And I know, so, G, I know you had some questions. We'll go ahead and start with you, and then we'll work around. Was there anything else between you two that you wanted to ask Travis on the subject?
No, I think everything's good. It really gave me some good insight on, how a studio works and everything, and kind of showing that, hierarchy. And I think
Can I
it was
ask you
pretty cool
guys a
to learn.
question?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Go for it.
Okay. So like as designers, what do you think that you would need assistance from in a producer? And also when you're looking at scope, because one of the things that you guys are responsible for is basically telling me how long you think something's gonna last. So when you guys are getting ready for that meeting for like say a sprint and you're like, okay, it's a 2-week sprint, I have to get this done. And I say, how long is that gonna take? Like, what's your thought process for getting that done? And what would be some facets of a project that you think you would need a producer's help on?
Go ahead, Dawson.
For me specifically, kind of seeing how getting, planning for that sprint. For me, it's a little bit hard to sometimes plan for the sprint because I'm still like new to planning and timing out how long this is going to take me, because in a way I kind of take some artistic liberties and try and make it as kind of good the level. So let's say I'm a level designer, I try and take as much time as I can on the level to make it as good as I possibly can, even though I have a deadline. My thought process would be to just kind of try and give myself a little bit of kind of that in between, and depending on which type of, if we're using waterfall or if we're using agile, because I know agile we can reassess and extend and kind of stuff like that.
Mhm.
Whereas waterfall, it's just going to keep trickling down. If I remember correctly, it's been a minute since I've looked at those. But for me, I would just kind of look at it and think about the level, and then give myself a little bit of a higher amount of time just so I can make sure I can complete and perfect that level. And for the help that I would require from a producer, um, you know, I would expect kind of, or the help I would expect, it was kind of the producers kind of to be my voice a little bit,
Okay.
since I'm lower on the food chain. Like, it's also it's a two-way telephone, right? I have to speak to you and talk to you and give you my concerns and everything for you to understand.
Mhm.
So, kind of being like my voice for things, and possibly kind of trying to help me out with anything that I need, but I also have to tell you what I need too. So, just kind of stuff like that.
Nice.
If that's clarified for you. And
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool.
Pick somebody, Dawson.
Oh shit, sorry. Oh yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, go ahead, Giovanni.
Um, for the time sprint question, I would give you the amount of hours I would do in a day, and then I will tell you what I can complete that day, based on my mindset. And then I would add these to like a task list, and I would put it in a week schedule, and then the producer will see what my plan is for the week. And what would I require a producer? I would require a producer to manage my time, to see how my game can be marketed well, how I can publish the game on a very good platform, so I can gain a great audience,
That's
and also for feedback.
That's good, because one thing people don't take into account is that your production team is the one that's in charge of all your game design documents. So when you guys are pitching a plan, it's going to be producers that take that document, build it further, and then they're going to basically kind of give you guys a design schedule. And so like when you dove into like, or dove into like the, I expect them to make my game as marketable as possible. Like they're doing that. They're working with the marketing team to say, hey, what do you guys need? So when you guys get those clips that say like, you know, gameplay reveal, like that's the production team working with the marketing team saying, what do you guys need? What do you want? How do I get you? Like what parts of the game design document do you think will help make this hype? And then they say, well, I need this. So they might move you. You might be working on like, you know, a specific thing, and then they walk up to you and they say, hey, listen, we got a presentation at E3 in 2 months. I need you to get this done. And so I'm moving you over here. And that's that agile workflow that you were talking about, Dawson, versus waterfall. Because waterfall, your waterfall, you're really only going to see on huge projects where like there's no way to move forward without like a certain skeleton. Like if you're starting from scratch, like I'm sure Bethesda started out as a waterfall with Starfield because they've never done anything like that before. So they have to build that skeleton first, and you can't move forward without that skeleton. So I'm sure that they had stages that they had to go through, and then they moved to like an agile workflow from there. But yeah, I'm glad you touched on that because that's a very underutilized feature of producers when you're talking about their effect on other departments.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely nice.
Passing the torch.
Yeah, did you have any more on that, Geo? Or do you want to pass it over to Sobi?
Yeah, go ahead, Sobi.
All right. All right. Well, when it comes to a sprint, I would hope that the producer. Okay, it would be depending. If I know the producer has experience on a project, I would hope that the producer can look at tasks and time them properly. And I would actually trust the producer at that point. Because I mean that's literally like what they have dedicated their lives to do is to manage the time that not only the investors are giving us to an MVP or even you have already looked at what our game design document is and have picked out what we need first for an MVP to be made. So in that manner, I think I would leave it up to the producer, and if I had a problem, if I knew that I was given a task that I felt was improperly timed, I would try to talk to my lead for them to talk to my producer. Right, because from what I understand, that's just how it goes. So.
Yeah, so like if I came in and I was like, I'm going to give you 20 hours to do this, and you're like, that's going to take me 35, you're going to be like, I got to talk to somebody because he did not scope that right.
Right, exactly.
Gotcha.
Which also
That's good.
kind of
And
brings me.
As for
back-
what I
Sorry.
oh, I'm sorry. As
No,
for
sorry
what I
about that,
expect
Toby.
from a producer, I really just expect them to come to me if I'm lagging, if I'm forgetting to, which I I definitely don't aim to do, if I'm forgetting to mark my Jira tasks done or in progress as I'm actually doing them. And then I would hope that the producer would have the proper etiquette when they come to me and tell me, look, you need to either pick it up or let us know that you're struggling with this. So yeah, that's what I would hope in a producer. Really, that's all. Just to nudge me when I'm lacking.
Perfect. That's what a good producer should do.
Can I?
Yeah,
I wanna
Dawson, go
add-
ahead.
before you pass the torch, I'm gonna add on something. I'm gonna add also feedback. For me, feedback is kind of key. Like, I listen to feedback quite well, and I ask you a lot of questions on what you think would be better. I kind of expect a producer to do that as well, like to give you feedback and for me, like I said, it's a two-way telephone. For me to ask you what could be done better on that specific level, or what aspect of the level that they testers didn't like, or that the producer and other people didn't like and stuff. So feedback is really key on that, because it
Mhm.
helps. It just makes the game better if you go with the feedback, if
I
if
agree.
it's really good feedback. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry about that, Sobi. You can pass the torch now.
I just want
Oh,
to
I
point
pass it
out.
to you, Fink.
I just want to point out Dawson changing his answers at the last second. But that's
Well,
fine.
no, it was more of a little tack on.
Listen,
rather than
listen,
changing.
listen. As a producer, I will say I expect answers to be changed as we are given more information, Fink.
That is
So I
true.
am okay with it.
You know what? That's true. That's true.
I'm
Hell
trying to
yeah.
say I approve this message.
I know for like my position on it is that I'm horrible about tasking myself, but then again, I'm actually realistic on my goals, especially when I'm filling out the Confluence and making my tasks in Jira. And I know that from where I am, that's not gonna be my problem. It's not gonna be me doing it, because like they're gonna take care of that documentation. But I would hope that I would still have that open line of communication with anybody above me to be like, hey, you know, like everybody else saying, if this goal is unrealistic, right? I can turn around and be like, as a designer for this, I can't do this in the time. There's just no way. You know, but what I would expect for the producer though is to be kind of like how Sobi, you know, echoing off what Sobi said, was I want people to be as transparent with me as possible. Like if I'm dragging my balls too much in the dirt and it's slowing me down, I expect the producer to be like, hey, you told me this is what you can do it in. It doesn't look like you're going to make that deadline. Is there a problem? Is there an issue we can resolve now? Because I know for myself, you know, like that's the issue I'm having now, is trying to manage my tasks right, because especially with the initial, like for the serious games, right? All the stuff that you have to do for that first initial start of your shadowing. Like I have no clue how I'm going to task that with myself, because of as work intensive as this first month is. You know, so keeping that open line of communication, echoing off what Dawson said, echoing off Sobi, hopefully there's transparency, and then my producer can come to me. Because I would think as a producer, you would have to have that fire a little bit to be able to approach your team. Because I don't know I don't know if you've seen a producer or someone in that position of power who's timid.
I
All right.
haven't. Everybody that I've talked to, and obviously like you've met them all, and so like the two of us were probably the biggest personalities in our think tank group.
Yeah.
And then everybody that I've met at the studio, they're like the people who talk the most on the meetings without even before we even get into like formalities, like the guys who are just like shooting the shit. They're all producers. So I don't think you can be timid and be a producer. No, I think you're right.
Yeah, because that's where I sit on it. You know, it's like, as if I had a producer, the one thing I would hope is that they can approach me if they want something, they need something, or they're telling me I'm dragging my ass too much. Because if you set me a deadline, I will try my damnedest to get that deadline done. Because if you properly set it up in Jira, I could see the steps, it's detailed, laid out. It would take something to actually kill me this time for me to stop. Because I'm going to get it done.
Dedication.
Hey,
Sure.
if they would let me intern in double, I'd intern in double.
I believe it.
It'd be
100%.
worth it.
Did you have
Well-
any more questions on that one, Travis?
No, that was it. I just wanted to get you kind of pick some brains, because the people I talk to every day are all producers, so I don't really get to talk to designers much.
Yeah, and the main reason why I pursue the master is the first person in enrollment that I talked to actually try to talk me out of it, because he was like, most of the people that are going to go into masters are people that want to produce. You're either going to be a producer and an entrepreneur. And my main idea is to go into the masters so that I can be an entrepreneur and possibly just indie, like an indie
That
freelancer.
that's crazy
Hopefully.
that he told you that.
Yeah, it is.
I'm in I'm in the indie Discord still because I just offered Taylor help on stuff if he needs it. But being in the serious games and the indie Discord, like, you can see that I would say 80% of them are designers.
Hmm.
So I that's just crazy that he said
I've seen that too in like the indie. They go, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we love these level design guys.
Yeah, everybody's a designer. Like, jokingly, everybody's a designer, but like I was only the third producer that they had interviewed, and the people that were interviewing me are on like month 10. So, I mean, they've been there almost a year, and I'm only the third producer that they've interviewed.
Nice.
Dang. Yeah. I found it funny too, because just like you guys have noticed, a lot of the people are pretty much in the same spot I am.
Yeah.
The-
Well, as for like when I was contacting like the Full Sail like team for enrollment for the masters, I mean, dude, the person I got was like it looks like you did great in the bachelor's, because you know my GPA was far above a lot of what I think on campus people were too. Not trying to throw any shade or anything like that, but like I did my best and worked my hardest doing this, you know, specifically all online and stuff, and they were like, yeah, go for it. And everything, and they were like, you know, it's going to be hard, and I'm like, I'm up for the challenge. Why not?
Yeah. So, I know that I did ask, make sure people brought some questions to the table. I'm going to go ahead and lead off with Geo, and then we'll go Dawson, Sobe, and Trav.
Okay.
We'll ask this as a general question to anybody who wants to answer it. So since we're all like full cell grads, what advice would you give somebody considering enrolling in Full Sail University before they enroll?
Can I go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I do not want to, for anybody who's in Full Sail, went to Full Sail, loves Full Sail. I do too. But let me just tell you, it is not for everybody. And I think anybody in here can agree with that.
Agreed.
If you are not number one, you're going to have, for the entire period of your program, whether it's the 24-month bachelor's program or the 13-month bachelor's program, you're going to just take those months and throw them away, because you're not going to have time to do anything, because Full Sail is rigorous, it is demanding, but it's real world education. So if you don't have the ability to like time manage, you're not going to succeed. If you can manage your time, and I also would suggest getting a group of friends. Like that first month you have where you can just like mess around the Discord and write silly papers, like make as many friends as you can, because it's going to be, doing it alone is impossible. But from there, if you are wanting, well, it's important to point out too, if you want to transfer, so if you want to go for your bachelor's program and then you want to transfer to like another school for your master's, you can't, unless it's a nationally accredited school. So Full Sail is not regionally accredited, and it's important to point that out when you're considering your education, because regionally accredited schools are like your UCF, Syracuse University, Michigan, like those schools, like those colleges, they have regional accreditations and you can transfer between them. If you have the accreditation that Full Sail has, you can't transfer. And so it's important to consider that if you're thinking from the start you want to go to postgraduate school. If that's not the case, I think Full Sail is great, because number one, the connections, the people that went to Full Sail are in the industry. That's a fact. Like, you can just network. You can get 100 people on LinkedIn right away that are working for studios that have that Full Sail logo next to their name, just like you. Two is it's intact in the aspect that it's relevant to what's happening today. Like, when I think Fink, you started you actually started in January, but we didn't meet up with you until like April, right?
No, because I had to skip. My writing didn't get skipped until later.
Right. And so
Right.
you were the one of the few people that went from Unity into Unreal, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So they changed the whole program in the middle of Fink's degree.
Yeah,
So-
same for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine too.
So, but that was based on industry trends. The school noticed that a bunch more or studios were shifting to Unreal Engine, and so they made the change themselves. And that's important to know because it means that you're going to be up to speed when you graduate. But yeah, my big three takeaways: if you can't time manage and you need time to like take and digest things slowly, this is not for you. You want to go to a traditional school where you have that full 4 months to like understand the topic. Um, you get what you put into it. So if you want to breeze by, you can do that, but you're not going to get anything out of it. And three would be network. You take advantage if you're going to go to Full Sail, take advantage of what it offers you because there probably isn't an alumni base as entrenched in their industries as there is at Full Sail. That's my piece.
Travis, how you gonna hit on like all the perfect ones?
Yeah, you didn't leave
Perfect.
anything
Real.
for anybody else.
Net-
You just steal the glory from all of us.
I'm
I'm sorry.
It's see, and that's it though. Networking is king.
Mhm.
It is so imperative coming from the bachelor's up to the master's. The only reason why the bachelor's was so fun and so enlightening, and I got to learn so many new things from either being taught or outside information, was because I networked my ass off. And I got to know a whole bunch of awesome individuals. And we got to take that journey together. It was never just me standing alone by myself, because you do have those people. Like I'm telling you right now, if you are joining Full Sail, not to deter you, because Travis, I'm like you. I love Full Sail. I enjoy the pace and I enjoy the amount of stuff I'm learning. But if you want to get in and try one of these, especially this intensive of a course and lone wolf the hell out of it is doable. But it is going to be so difficult because you're going to have all these people that are willing to contact you, are willing to contact other students and connect with them immediately. Those group projects, they're going to have the first pick. You're going to have a lot of other people who don't work well with others try to work with you. And the thing is like the networking is king. Getting in and agreed, put in what you only get what you put in. Work your ass off. Just because it's online, do not take that as a free pass, because there was hundreds of students who started out with every single one of us. And when I graduated, only 80, Dawson?
About 86, less than 90
Well-
students in the game design bachelor's that passed. So I started out with hundreds of people too. And I was actually behind you, Fink, when I started.
If
So I-
I'm not mistaken, you guys walk with on campus too, right? So even
Yep.
more people dropped out than it's accounting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So like
yeah.
I
There was
said,
only like 8 people from the game design
mhm.
program
Uh,
in my wall.
Yeah, dude, yeah. About only 80 of us actually walked. Were actually like walked, and I think graduated on campus. There are some who didn't, like go and graduate on campus, so it was a little bit more. It was probably about a few hundred people, but like I started or less actually. It was probably about like 100, maybe 150 people that graduated, I guess. And this leads me on to my first piece of advice for people, considering enrolling in Full Sail University. Research them. Please research before you decide to go to Full Sail, because you'll see their turnover rate for people, kind of dropping out, their graduation rate for their respective degrees and everything. You'll see how much it costs, so if you can afford it and stuff like that. Second piece of advice I would give is to be ready to commit. if you're enrolling in here. Be ready to absolutely 100 commit 100% of your time. I saw people who had jobs going doing full sail and their job at the same time. I know it's rough. You got to make a living in the world, right? But those people ended up, you know, failing a lot and taking more loans out, but also dropping out too, and just not getting about halfway through the degree, 75% of the way through the degree, and just dropping out.
Mind you, that was in some cases.
That was in some cases. There are people
Travis
who
did make it.
Yes.
He worked and did it.
But I would like to note, if I like, I was gonna say, I'm gonna interject and say that I put in the work for my company like for years prior to going to school. They let me drop down to part-time for Capstone, so I wouldn't have gotten through Capstone as a full-time employee. So you're either going to have to quit your job for Capstone or drop to part-time if they let you. So that's realistically like you're still on the right track, because if I didn't have that flexibility, I don't think I would have got through Capstone.
Yeah, definitely. It's just because I've seen so many people who go to Full Sail, have a job, and kind of just like flunk out in a way. Not everybody does that. There are a lot of people who can manage their time really well, which leads me to my next point. Like Travis and Fink said before me, manage your time, and finally, kind of just like also like Fink and Travis said, network and make friends. I wouldn't have been able to probably get through Capstone without the team I was with. So you, Fink, and everybody else in our Capstone group. Because if you just get paired with random people, you're not going to make a good product. You need that kind of mesh to go. So yeah, I'm probably just gonna pass it over to Sobi now. Go for it, bud.
All right. I would say when you look at Full Sail and look at the degree that you're about to go into, make sure you're actually passionate and really love what you're about to do, because you've already heard it 3 times. It's very rigorous and time consuming process. But with the networking that is available to you here and the work that they assign you is actually going to prepare you for the professional life, for a working environment. Even in the bachelor's, most of us could have just gone straight into a job if we wanted to. So if it's really what you want, all of their tracks are expedited. So there's going to be a lot of work all of the time, and you only have 1 month per subject, 2 at a time sometimes.
Yeah.
So make sure it is something you're entirely passionate about. And that's all I got to say.
Agreed.
Yep. Be ready to commit. That's
Yeah.
all I have to say. Be ready to commit your time, because it takes time to learn, and it takes time to pass. It takes time to make a good product too.
Yeah. And life still happens. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yes.
I was homeless for a lot of my bachelor's, and I somehow made it work.
Yep.
But it's that passion. And
Yes, sir.
Fink knows. He just jumped right back into it after his thing. And
Yep. I had to, man. Would have lost
Hell
my
yeah,
mind if
man,
I
it's-
didn't.
it's all we have.
Yep.
And for anyone that's thinking about it, I hope it is. You feel like that's all you have. That's your love, your passion, and that's what you want to do.
Now, Gio,
I had-
do you want to go on the same topic, or do you want to go to your next question?
I was actually about to say that I wanted to add another question based on these wonderful answers that you guys gave me.
Okay.
So like, the next question is, after you guys finished Full Sail University, would you say your money was well spent?
Now, this is going to be based off like hypothetical at the moment, because for me, if you guys don't mind,
for it.
Honestly, I found out that I am happier learning new things all the time. So yes, for me it's going to be money well spent because I know for myself I I didn't do much in high school, man. Like I made all right grades. I never failed a class, but I've learned more since I started my college path than I ever did in high school. And for me, thinking at it long term, right, as long as I know that nothing life altering happens where I just lose the will and the love for my craft, I honestly believe that regardless, it'd be worth it. Because the connection I've made so far with the people I've met, as well as the insight and the learning that I've done so far, has been worth it. Dawson.
Well, for me, was it one money well spent? It definitely was. You know, that's kind of like you think. I didn't really, I never failed a class in high school, but I didn't really do anything either. And the same thing happened for an extra like 2 years going into a community college because I was kind of just, forced into that, right? Like I just, that had that stigma or stipulation or whatever that my mother put on me. She was like, you're going to college and you're gonna graduate with something. Um, so I kind of ended up in community college. That definitely wasn't money well spent. That for sure wasn't money well spent. But COVID hit. I got a recommendation to go to Full Sail, and I did a lot of research on Full Sail before I decided to go. And I'm now here, like, and I believe it was really worth the money that I've spent on it or the loans I've taken out because of one, like you said, Fink, the connections I've made and everything. Two, that this kind of real world learning that I get to learn more about, like my craft and everything and stuff. And three, because I was never really passionate about anything in life um, until I got into Full Sail and started learning to make games, and then it just kind of took off from there and just went off of that. And so it was definitely money well spent for me as well. So I'm gonna throw it over to you, Sobi.
All right. When it comes to money, it's theoretical at the time, but even reflecting on how many years I will be paying this back, it's worth every time that I go pay it back. I'm just gonna remember that this is what made me who I am, because this school actually built us up as professionals and not just taught us things, or because real world education, it's invaluable, so definitely worth it.
Well said.
Definitely.
What's,
I definitely believe that we've all like grown from going to Full Sail, and surpassed where we thought we were probably going to be, and we're still not even hitting that ceiling of what we are going to be and what we will be. So that I believe that. And sorry about that, Travis. But the question was, after you finished Full Sail University, would you say that your money was well spent?
Oh, okay. Well, I have a unique perspective on this. I actually already had a bachelor's degree before I started at Full Sail. I was, quote, end quote, working in my dream field. I got a degree from Jacksonville University in sports administration. I interned with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I worked in AAA hockey and single A hockey, and was the director of operations in single A hockey, which is pretty much as high as you can go because the franchise was mine. The only person above me was the owner. And so I found myself wanting would be a good example. I didn't feel fulfilled in my work. I felt like I was just, in essence, doing a career for the sake of a career. If you guys, I'm sure you guys can relate to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so I ended up the ownership folded, and rather than like pursue another job in pro sports and drive around the country and go wherever the sports takes me, I decided to kind of like take a reset, and I went back to an old job that I had. And when COVID hit, obviously I had time to think, and I did some research and talked to my sisters and everybody who's important in my life about what I could do, and everybody kind of gave me the thumbs up, and I took off. And I have to say, as somebody who got a bachelor's from a regionally accredited university that's very well known, JU is one of the best schools in the state of Florida. I think I've gotten more out of my 29 months plus 4, so 33 months of Full Sail in terms of career readiness, industry networking, resume building, on the job experience, real time industry experience, you name it. I've got more of that from Full Sail in 39 months than I did in 4 years at JU. So the side by side is really stark. I will never criticize traditional education, but I definitely think that there are avenues that you can utilize at schools like Full Sail that can get you to what you want to do faster. So yes, I think it's worth the money.
Definitely. Also
Very
add something
nice.
onto there, Travis. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. About JU. I was in a community college before I went to Full Sail, right? And then like COVID hit, so everything went online. And I find that the kind of like traditional college learning is I didn't get too much out of it compared to Full Sail either. Like I mean, I got something, but compared to getting what I get from Full Sail, it's Full Sail. It's just the comparison between the two is kind of where I'm at, where you're at too. So
Yeah, I mean, you're comparing apples to potatoes. They're just not the
Yeah.
same.
yeah, definitely. So
All right, Gio.
I can say Full Sail was very well spent for me. Before I didn't really like learning, and I just like playing games. Before I just had a job, like a regular job, but life just went on. I actually gained a new passion and game creation, and this actually has made me like love learning a lot more now. So now, like every day, I'm always learning something, either on my own or I'm working on a project now. And ever since I graduated from Full Sail, I've delved into like the whole field of game development, which is programming, game design, level design, um, even some aspect in marketing, but not too much. So I would say my money was very well spent because I gained like a great passion for something that I actually like instead of playing games the whole time.
Yeah, I'm with you on that because I enjoyed playing games, but now it's kind of like I'm in between because now I notice things that I wouldn't have noticed before, like some bugs or something like that, and then I start to think to myself, I was like, I know how to fix this, and it's bugging me more the longer it stays in the game.
It's like the digital equivalent of never meet your idols.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've actually found myself on a flip spectrum though. Like when I play video games now, when my friends critique it, I'm like, you have no idea the work that went into this. Shut up. They think it's
You
so
don't
bad.
understand.
for real, dude.
They're like, how
Like-
hard is it? How hard is it to fix this bug? I'm like, actually, really hard. All right, shut up.
Dude, it's like it's like
You try making
one
a game.
bug. When one bug happens and you fix it, like a million different others go. So I'd rather just leave the one bug in. It's a feature.
Shut up, Greg. You work at Walmart.
because you work at GameStop doesn't mean you can take my games.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Gio. Was there any more you want to pass on?
Would anybody like to go?
Any other questions for the
Uh,
floor?
I
Let
have
me
one.
see if I can think of one. Oh yeah, go ahead. All right,
Yeah,
well,
go
I'll
ahead,
think of
Sophie.
one.
And it's actually I'm just spinning off of what we just talked. So now that you've been deep in the trenches, and we've all decided a good piece of a game or an entire game for some of us, an entire good game with minimal bugs. uh, how do you feel when you go back and you start playing other people's games? Like what's your most relived emotion when you play games that you used to love a lot, and now you see
Mine is
notice the
so
bugs here and there?
trivial, Sophie. If I didn't know what Z fighting was, it wouldn't bug me so much. But I've played a couple maps in Call of Duty recently that there's some Z fighting going on. Like I just see it. And like every time I play the certain maps, I go back to check and it's still there.
AAA baby.
And I don't know why it bugs me, but it does. It's just something so small. Maybe it's because like when we had to build our levels right, we would catch it like as students. We would tell them, everybody, if we'd see Z fighting, right? And
Yeah, it was like the first critique.
yeah, it's like the first.
That's the
critique
first,
on
very
everything,
first.
right? It's like one thing everybody's looking for, and just like now I see it, it bugs me. And then I realize, like dropping off into Destiny, the original, the first game, when you were able to spawn yourself through a wall with a sparrow and end up on the other side of like an unplayable area. And for the life of me, I know they're blocking out this area, but then while they're working on it, they kind of remove that block. And I'm like, should just put a kill field here, man. It's a nice little overlapping valley. Removes the player and respawns them somewhere else.
See, I'm in the same
Yeah.
boat, except for me, it's collision boxes that like clearly just weren't adjusted. Like you're nowhere near an asset and you can't go forward, and you can tell the default collision box was way too big and they just didn't adjust it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, why can't I walk there?
I found that out in like Unity when we were working with Geo and Dawson working on like asteroids. If I didn't wrap like the collision right, that asteroid collision was huge compared to the actual asset.
It's
Right.
ridiculous. Yeah.
You just wonder what QA's up to. You're like, listen, boys. If little old me can find it when I'm not even trying, what are you doing?
Dude, I think my biggest thing is getting out of people's levels. Like, I'm sitting here like, and this has happened to me a few times. Like when I'm building my level, like Fink finds ways to get out, and I'm like, how? I'm like, what are you doing to like do this? And he's like, dude, I sat there for an hour just waiting for the asteroids to move this certain way just so I could get out. And I'm like, who does that?
Yeah, it's annoying.
Who in their right mind does that? Like you sat
I've
there
been
for an hour and being silent on Discord with me, and then you were like, "All right, I found a way out of your level," and I'm like, "What do you mean?" But-
In my capstone, we hired Fink, and jokingly, but we call his title in our Discord was the Breaker of Games,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd literally be like, "We have this build, Fink, go break it." 15 minutes
Yeah.
later, he's like, "I'm falling through the map." I'm like, all righty, whatever.
Yeah, no. Whenever he was testing games for like the capstone portion of stuff too, he broke like 90% of the people's games. I'm just like, what? But
it's because when we do QA, they don't specify what they want me to test, so I immediately, as soon as the game starts, I try to break it. I do everything possible like all the things that are simple ways to break it, right? I'd go do them first. And then I move on to the, okay, maybe I can jump here to here to here and get out. And then by like the third step, I'm either out of your game or breaking it again. You know?
You know what it is, Fink? It's the level of disrespect I feel when you do it. It's I know you're not. There's no disrespect involved, but like I watched you do one of the QAs for I think it was Adventure Game, that project we did, and I watched you do one of the playthroughs, and you spawned in, immediately turned around and just walked off the map. Like you didn't even attempt to play it in reality. You just turned around, walked off the map, and then like watched yourself fall for 15 seconds. And I was like, if I'm who made this level, I'm finding out where you live and I'm fighting you.
Exactly,
You didn't have to do that.
Yeah. No, like I've noticed it with like, World of Warcraft and everything. There's some people like back in the day, man, who just got out and glitched under the map. I was like, how do you even find this stuff? Like, you have to meet like the right conditions to even do this. Like, I have to drink like 7 flasks of potion and then who thinks of that? Like, come on. It's just weird, but I kind of appreciate it in a way too, because I'm like, well, I got a job still. Let's go.
I'm convinced that somebody that works at a studio, they're showing like these particular bugs or something to somebody, or exploits to someone they know, and that's how they get leaked out.
Bro, probably.
Yeah.
100%.
What is your take, Gio?
Well, playtesting is actually fun. Sometimes it depends on the game I'm playing, but yeah, bugs. I try to break the game a lot every time I am playtesting.
Oh,
As
yeah.
soon as possible, I will try everything possible to break the game. But I document the bugs usually on Jira or the software that is desired for me to. Usually, it's actually Google Forms where I actually post the information on.
Yeah, that's kind
Play-
of like how I did it, right? Like, because I know not everybody has like the Jira. Not everybody, because uses Jira. Like I've had to do that too a lot in like Google Forms.
Yeah, Google Forms are actually pretty good for like even just like getting feedback for like your game. Yeah.
About like very minuscule things. Like, I mean, Google Forms are pretty good for like a lot. I think Jira is like a whole lot better though, because when me and Fink were QAing and doing like Jira stuff, we'd add like clips of like little Windows clips, and then put it in there showing them how we did it, and then just a bunch of fixes to kind of recreate. We always added video clips and screenshots, and I couldn't find really a way to do that with what's it called, Google Forms or whatever it was. So like I think I like Jira a little bit better, because you can just it's just those clips that can help the designer a lot.
I agree.
Cool. Well, on that note, I actually feel quite the opposite. I actually feel more more empathetic about, well, when I see messed up things in a game. I'm like, oh man, but I understand how actually hard it is to do this. so but I do feel on the fence about playing games these days. Like you say, Fink, it's kind of
We kind of had the rare opportunity of seeing this like gorgeous, beautiful freaking perspective of a game before. And now we've gotten able to see it in an X-ray and see how it's made. We know how it's made. We know how everything that goes into it. It kind of broke the veil a little bit for me. It's not that I don't enjoy it. Yeah, it's not that I don't enjoy it, because I definitely do enjoy some of them now, like more story-driven games. That's what I enjoy more now than I ever did.
Yeah, because I like that story, the story base of story driven games, like so like God of War, and like The Last of Us 2, both of the remake and part 2. They're amazing just because of the story, but it also adds a really good gameplay on top of it for both of them. So really good combat systems and everything, and that's what really draws me in. But if you have something that's kind of like, if you don't have like a meaning or a story to your game, it kind of turns me off of it a little bit, because I want to play something and be immersed in it, and for it to have like a story and meaning of why I'm doing this stuff. So, which is kind of, a little bit more towards the kind of, I guess, evolution of games.
Mhm.
But I also do gotta say too, think that playing games now, like that magical veil we had has dropped, and now we see we see everything. We see all the textures, meshes, and everything, and we're like, oh god, I bet that was so hard to make, or I know how to fix this. Please fix it, right? So
Well, it's a,
Yeah, like piggybacking off of that, when you said like, "Oh, this is amazing," like I have a newfound respect for games that execute things perfectly, because
mhm,
I'm like, this took effort, like it's
forever. This took years.
yeah. You walk into like that's how I felt the first like when I first walked out of like the opening spot in Elden Ring. I was like, dude, this is gonna be crazy. This
Oh
is
my god.
a passion project, you
Dude,
know.
whenever they were like George R. R. Martin wrote the story for Elden Ring, I was like, I'm in it. I love
Oh yeah,
Game of Thrones. I was just like, I'm in it. And the fact that it took years to make, they had this going for, they had to have that game going for a while. I mean, yeah, there were glitches and stuff, but a lot of people were trying to break the game anyways.
yeah.
A lot
so
of people do that. It's just people break stuff, and I find that cool at the same time though. It
Well, I
helps
mean, you
us learn as designers to fix that stuff, but
right.
also like I'm just like, wow, you had the dedication to find this and break this. Kudos to
And,
you.
and without broken games, you wouldn't have the speedrunning community. So you're welcome, speedrunners.
that's
Yeah.
Yeah,
true.
exactly.
It's
Exactly.
true.
Those are on purpose so we can still have speedrunners.
Correct.
I mean,
It's a feature.
so
A feature, not a bug.
I'm gonna start winding us down a bit because we are getting a little long-winded. With that being said, how you said that this game is in long development, right? Elden Ring. It was in been. It must have been. How
I
do
can
you
find out right now.
feel when a game company will cater in to the audience and just give them something rather than finishing the product? Let's say Cyberpunk, for instance.
So
Yeah, go. No, you go ahead,
I was
Trev.
gonna say Elden Ring. Elden Ring was in development for 5 years.
Yeah.
But
Um,
that's something well executed. I'm talking about when the development team decides that, okay, we've had enough hearing from the audience and the masses, that we're just going to go ahead and release whatever.
The question becomes, Fink, do you really think it was the audience or do you think it was the investors?
I'm
Audience.
thinking,
Both.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that the investors were feeling the pressure because they're getting pressure to try to release it early
Mm-hmm.
or even on time. And I think that's what happened with it releasing early, which,
After what happened with Sea of Thieves, I accredit almost every single early release where a game comes out and it's broken to investors, because at the general, just speaking from the perspective of having talked to somebody who works at Rare and knowing the cycle for Sea of Thieves now, the studios take into account complaints from their community when it comes to delays, but they, at the end of the day, they know that anybody would much rather have a clean, concise product than have a buggy, unplayable mess. And so with Sea of Thieves, for instance, like it was a pretty ambitious project. I don't know if any of you have played it,
yes.
but
Yeah, it's fun.
Yes.
when it first came out, it was empty. There really wasn't much to it. But the reason for that is because it was right after Microsoft bought Rare, and Microsoft bought Rare and was like, I want Sea of Thieves out now. I want it to be exclusive to Xbox, and I want it to be, I don't care. And so I was an alpha tester for them. I played when they first developed the mechanic to dig up treasure, and
Mhm.
I remember the last alpha test I did. I was like, "This game is cool, but it's not ready. Like, there's just not enough there." And they knew that, but they still had to push it out, and then they had to like couple that with like, "Well, here's our roadmap, here's our development." But you can see with those roadmaps that these studios, like their fully released game, was supposed to be so much different than what came out because like the overall investor or publisher was like, no, you need to get that out now. And so I would equate it 80-20 to investors, publishers pushing games out early rather than communities themselves. My 2 cents.
Yeah. So for me, I do have to say that I I agree with your 80-20. Like, the investors are the ones who are controlling the purse strings, right? And when you close that, close that purse up, it's like, and you're forcing them to do something, they don't want to do, so like pushing out a game. It's mainly the investor. But if the investor can just hold out and not like feel pressure from the community too, then like what I would say is just give me time and give me money, and I can make you something amazing if you just give me the time and the money to do it. Right?
Right.
It's all about time. It's all about money, and we as designers we love the support from the community, but we love the support, but we also want your criticism too. But just give us a little bit of time and we can get it done. And I see that now from going from you know a a player to a designer, and it's like, wow, it's like, wow, it's way different. It's a
Yeah.
way different perspective. So that's pretty much my 2 cents on it. You go ahead, Sobi.
Um, was there a question?
Oh, sorry about that.
Basically,
Yeah.
they were asking like what you thought the reasoning for games or studios putting out games that aren't
Oh,
fully finished yet is.
sorry, yeah. Spaced out. I'm gonna have to agree that most likely, mainly the investors, which I mean, if you think about it, the investors probably are influenced by the player base, whatever player base the game has, or potential customers. The people that are going to be paying these investors back. So I can see an 80-20 split between investors nagging these major game companies, especially because those are the most noticeable half produced games that come out way too early, like Cyberpunk, Battlefield, not 2042.
It's also it's also about kind of with
Any
the
freaking Call of Duty in the past 10 years.
yeah, definitely. It's also about the investor too. They're in it to make money, and it's about how much money you can make them back. Uh, it's how about how much money that they can get back from their investment into this game. So, from what I believe, it might not be 100% that every time, but I'm looking at it as a perspective from an investor in his way. If I invest in this game and give your studio money to make this game, I definitely want to make profit on it. So, which is why
Yeah,
if I was, an
100%.
investor, like if you needed more time, I'd give you more time, more time and money. I could definitely do that, but you got to let me know. And it's the same thing, kind of like how I was saying about with the producer. I think it's a two-way phone with the studio and the investor in a way, saying, "Hey, we need more time, we need more money to do this." Um, but you also have to look at it in the perspective, the investor's perspective too, saying, if the studio's, slacking or lacking off too, like it's just like I can't give you any more time or money to make this complete if you're slacking on it, right? Too,
Mm,
I guess you get what I'm kind of like saying here. I guess. Sorry if I'm
Definitely.
like rambling a little bit.
What's
No,
your thoughts,
definitely. Yeah,
Jude?
we're
My thoughts. I actually think the audience is to blame for the Cyberpunk release. Because the developers are really well respected. They came out with The Witcher 3. That game, everybody loved that game. Um, Cyberpunk, when it came out, it was very buggy, but that's mainly I think the reason is because they weren't ready to publish it on the older platforms like the PlayStation 4. Um, so it was actually very well on the PlayStation 5 and also very well on the PC. So I think the main issues was the PlayStation 4. And I think it was because it was rushed to publish. Because a lot of people say they waited enough. The game was announced, I believe, 2012, and people were demanding it to be released. And I guess that over that pressure, they did not test it on all the platforms and they took it out buggy. So that actually did hurt the production, but overall, the game was one of the best games I played, aside from the bugs.
No, I mean, I believe the turnaround from where it started to where it is now is great. They did so well on bouncing back. And unfortunately, I would like to give the game just its credit, but the show helped it.
Oh yeah, the show definitely helped out Cyberpunk. It really got a lot of people back into it.
Yeah.
That was
So,
Oh, yeah.
It really like gave Cyberpunk that like breath of life. But on the downtime when people weren't playing Cyberpunk, they were still fixing the game, and that's part of where fixing bugs and everything. That's where I also respect the developers too. Is they even know your sales probably didn't do as good or whatever. I don't know the sales for Cyberpunk, but they still kind of had that roadmap, had those bug fixes, and fixed not everything, but fixed a lot of stuff. And then they decided, why not? Let's do a show, and that show breathed, gave it a lot of life back into that game, and made people come back to it, and it just sparked it up again.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
yeah, and even then they've always put out great titles with
Oh,
crap
yes.
ton of bugs. Because even Witcher,
we'll see.
even
And-
to this day, the original Witcher is full of bugs, but it's such an amazingly well put together game.
and
That
then-
those
bugs.
are
Bugs don't break a game. Look at Bethesda.
exactly.
Yeah.
Skyrim, come on.
Well, and that's the thing about looking at it, through the looking glass of what we see now. Because echoing back off what you said, Sobe, I can be empathetic to all the work that goes into this now. The same thing you said, Travis. It's being on one side of the fence for so long, just being a consumer and buying these games, and now gaining the knowledge to be on the other side of the fence. I know what it takes to go into it and how much work that it takes now. So I can see both edges of the coin, and it's kind of dangerous for us because we can tell whether the studio or company is actually putting out updates or is listening, right? Because we get to see, well, we know this is a major bug, but we don't ever see it gets fixed. Or we can be, there's all these bugs. Oh, they're getting fixed. You know what? That's awesome. So I mean, it's cool being on both sides.
For
I
sure.
think it's kind of like a thing. Like I guess if the saying I'm is gonna say is right, is I guess the grass was greener on the other side type of thing.
Ignorance is bliss.
No, 100%.
Like
yeah,
I
if
keep
you love
saying.
video games, don't make them, friends.
Yeah.
like I keep saying, it's not a bug, it's a feature.
It's a
Yeah.
feature. Well, all right, gentlemen. It has been a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Thank every developer and designer, producer on our
Yep.
panel today. We are going to try to attempt to do this a little bit more fluently. We will refine and be better as we go. So hopefully you guys will join me on the next one, and we will definitely see everybody a little bit later.
I'm gonna go watch Last of Us.